Hello, my magnificent young world leaders. Are you ready to learn some law and change the world? Well, welcome to the last section of the last module of this course. It's on internet law and ethics, and it's kind of a scattergun again of different issues because, as you probably know, there's a scattergun of different issues facing the internet these days. The biggest question of all, though, with regard to law, business, and society is to what extent should the internet be regulated and by whom? And we're having some of those issues right now with regard to Twitter. Some people say the president's been out of line on Twitter and Twitter's being abused for political purposes, and some days the president says some people should be banned from Twitter because they're putting out false information. So, in a free country, in a democracy where we protect freedom of speech, is it ever right to regulate access to speech, access to communication? Well, there are some limits. I mean, we put limits on commercial speech. You can't engage in false or fraudulent advertising. We put limits on terrorist tactics. You can't scream fire in a crowded theater. So the ongoing dispute is going to be, how should the internet be regulated? Should it be left to the free market system to regulate it? Should it be regulated by the government? Should it form its own governing system and self-regulate? These problems are probably going to be argued about for decades into the future. In the meantime, we have a whole a spectrum of different ethical issues that come up with regard to the internet, not the least of which is the argument that the internet is racially discriminatory. How could that be? Well, as of the date of the publishing of this book, which is a few years old now, African American households in America, only 40% of those households had access to broadband, whereas in white households it was 73%. So just the issue of, do you have access to the internet, and all of the educational and economic opportunities involved with the internet, some of that breaks down by race. Some of it also breaks down by disability. Blind people are complaining they have a terrible time navigating the internet because there are no written descriptions of links to different websites. No verbal descriptions of the photographs and images that are shown. So we have a disability access issue, and then we have an international access issue. Africa, in the nations of Africa, only 5.3% of all the people have access to the internet at all, whereas in North America it's 73.1%. So that is a huge gap in access to all of this incredibly valuable and powerful information. An interesting side point, though, North America is behind the power curve with regard to Asia and Europe. As of the date of the publication of this textbook, 246 million Americans had access to the internet, but in Asia it was 530 million. And in Europe, it was 382 million. So America lags behind in access to the internet. There's also a very powerful and very frightening argument that the internet, which people hoped was going to bring the world together and create a sense of community among all people, has actually done more damage to the sense of community than if we didn't have it at all. And there are some studies to confirm that many people now who used to go out and join service clubs and churches and do social things to commune with people now sit at home in the safety of their living room couch and send out emails and read text messages, and they don't even go out and commune with other human beings. And it's done damage. There was one study that indicated that email has damaged the degree of efficiency in businesses and corporations. And one of the reasons was that if two people working for the same corporation in the same building are working on the same project, and one of them wants to communicate with the other one, he won't get up out of his office and walk across the hall to talk to the person face to face where they would have the most effective communication. Instead, he'll shoot that person an email, which is subject to all kinds of misinterpretation, miscommunication, and never quite as good as being face to face with a person and being able to read their facial expressions, their body language, the tone of their voice. So not everything about the internet is good. There's a question of net neutrality. Do we allow the corporations that control the servers to also control what goes on to the servers, or should anybody who wants access to the internet to advertise their products or whatever, their political views or whatever it is they want to do, should the net be neutral with regard to the input that goes into it and goes out to the people? There's always the question of the bombardment with advertising. If we don't want the little pop-ups, if we don't want the cookies, if we don't want all the advertising junk that constantly bombards us on the internet, is there any way that we could regulate the internet in such a way that we could filter that stuff out without interfering with those advertisers' First Amendment rights to freedom of speech? And of course we have internet crime, we have the fraud, we have scams, we have the phishing, we have the hacking, we have the outfits that'll take over your system and then hold you for ransom. All of these things, serious criminal problems, and it's going to be years, I guess, before we figure out, if ever, how to stop that, or at least greatly reduce that.